Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to crack the code on art history. We're going to unravel all those different isms and see how they actually tell one single continuous story, and it's a story of rebellion.
You know the feeling, right? You're standing in a museum, looking at a painting, and the little card next to it says something like Baroque, or Cubism, or Surrealism. It can feel, well, pretty overwhelming, almost like you're trying to understand a language you've never heard before.
But what if I told you there is a key? And honestly, it's way simpler than you might think. It really just starts with getting a handle on a few basic ideas that, once you get them, unlock the entire history of art. Okay, so before we start jumping through time, we need to build a little toolkit for ourselves. If you can get these next few definitions down, I promise everything else we talk about is just going to click into place. First up, movement versus style. A movement is like a team sport. It's a group of artists who've consciously banded together. They share a goal, a philosophy, they might even write a whole manifesto about what they're trying to do. A style, on the other hand, can be way more personal. Think of Van Gogh's swirly, one-of-a-kind brushstrokes. Or it can be a label that we, art historians, apply way later to connect the dots.
And then you've got a school. This one's pretty simple. It's usually all about location. The Hudson River School, a bunch of artists painting the American landscape. The Florentine School, all centered in Florence during the Renaissance. See? Movement, style, school. That's our toolkit. Now we're ready for the real story.
And here's where it gets really good. Because art history isn't just a random collection of different looks on a timeline. No, it's a chain reaction. It's a story of constant, powerful rebellion. This quote absolutely nails it. This is the engine that drives the whole thing forward. No art movement ever just pops up out of nowhere. It's always a reaction, a pushback against whatever the previous generation thought was the absolute peak of art. So our story really kicks off with the Renaissance. This was a rebirth of classical ideas from ancient Greece and Rome. Artists like Leonardo and Michelangelo were obsessed with order, harmony, and creating perfectly realistic human bodies. The goal was this kind of rational, idealized beauty. But all that calm, rational perfection, well, it was practically begging for a rebellion. Baroque artists like Caravaggio came along and basically said, "Where's the passion? Where's the drama?" And they fought back with everything they had: intense light and shadow, explosive diagonal lines, and just raw, unfiltered theatrical emotion. And of course, in turn, all that over-the-top drama of the Baroque got a reaction of its own. Neoclassicism swung the pendulum all the way back. Artists like Jacques-Louis David rejected the emotion and went back to the cool, rational, orderly world of ancient Rome, with its stoic poses and super crisp, clear lines. I think you're seeing the pattern now, right? After all that cold, stoic logic, what comes next? Of course, the Romantics burst onto the scene, and they were all about everything neoclassicism wasn't: intense, raw emotion, political passion, and the wild, untamed, sometimes terrifying power of nature. Okay, so for a few hundred years, this cycle of rebellion played out pretty slowly. But then we hit the modern era, and it's like someone slammed their foot on the accelerator. The world started changing faster than ever, and art was right there trying to keep up. All of a sudden, new movements weren't popping up every 100 years or so. Nope, they were literally exploding onto the scene every single decade. The rebellion was now happening in real time, right before everyone's eyes. So let's take Impressionism, for example. This was a total rebellion against the super formal, polished paintings that the official French Academy loved. The Impressionists literally took their easels outside and tried to capture a fleeting moment, the impression of light, with these quick, visible brushstrokes. But here's a funny little twist in the story. A lot of these rebellious new movements actually got their names from the people who hated them the most. The names were originally meant to be insults. So get this. A critic goes to see Claude Monet's new painting, Impression, Sunrise, and he basically scoffs that it looks unfinished, like a mere impression. He was totally making fun of it. But the artists, they were like, you know what? That's perfect. We'll take it. And it happened again. Years later, the very same critic, Louis Vauxhall, mocked a painting for looking like it was made of little cubes. And just like that, he had accidentally named Cubism. So we've seen artists rebel against style after style. But the biggest, most game-changing rebellion of all was still to come. This one wasn't just about changing what art looked like. It was about changing what art even was. For centuries, for forever,
Art was about skill. It was about creating a beautiful, skillfully crafted object. The Mona Lisa is the perfect example. The genius is right there in the object itself. And then in 1917, this happened. An artist named Marcel Duchamp walked into what was basically a hardware store, bought a urinal, turned it upside down, signed it with a fake name, and submitted it to an art exhibition. He called it Fountain.
And boom, just like that, conceptual art was born. This wasn't just a random prank, though. Think about it. Photography could now capture reality perfectly, and the world was reeling from the pointless slaughter of World War I. So for Dada artists like Duchamp, the whole idea of making beautiful objects seemed totally absurd. With Fountain, the art wasn't the urinal, it was the idea. It was the shocking, brilliant, and infuriating questions it asked that became the masterpiece. The rebellion was no longer against a style. It was against the very idea that art had to be a physical object at all.
This massive, massive shift brings us right up to the present day and to a really fascinating question about the art world we live in right now. I mean, think about it. If you walk into a contemporary art gallery, you'll see a dozen different styles, 100 different approaches, all living side by side. So does that mean the whole idea of a big, definable art movement is over?
Well, people are pretty split on this. On one side, you have people who say, yep, the old model is dead. Artists today can pull from all of history at once, so that old pattern of rebellion just doesn't apply. But then you have others who argue that no, new trends are always forming. They're just driven by things like technology and social change now. We just might not have the ism to name them yet. You know, maybe the best way to think about it is with this idea from the ancient Greek philosopher Heraclitus. Art history is like that river. It's in a constant state of flow, always changing. Every new rebellion, every new idea alters its course forever. And the only thing we really know for sure is that it will never, ever stand still.